The biggest problem Sardar Patel faced in uniting the state was that of Hyderabad. He had many problems. Mountbatten always tried to help Nizam. Moreover, Nehru was never in favor of direct operation. How many times the team of Sardar Patel negotiated with Nizam, but to no avail, and finally he had to take the step which he did and conquered Hyderabad. It's a little long story, but we must understand the strength of our leader by listening to the entire story. In Hyderabad, India faced a situation far more serious than in any other state. Situated as it is in India's belly, Patel asked, how can the belly breathe if it is cut off from the main body? It was a question of survival for India. A frightening situation was rapidly developing in Pakistan dominated Hyderabad. Mountbatten's press attaché, Ellen Campbell Johnson, saw Hyderabad's various sponsored acts as acts to display her status as an independent nation. Such acts related to normal and physical violation of the standstill agreement. A loan of 20 crores to Pakistan and the state congress leaders' imprisonment without trial. The most provocative was the activities of Qasim Rizvi. Further, Hyderabad's Prime Minister Mir Laik Ali was till September 1947 Pakistan's representative at the United Nations. Far more disquieting was Jinnah's statement, I require Hyderabad as an active ally, not as a neutral in such a war against none other than India. Patel's most formidable obstacle lays in Mountbatten's outlook and his conversion of Nehru to his point of view to prevent the Indian army from moving into Hyderabad. Further, Walter Monckton, the Nizam's constitutional advisor, was a friend of Mountbatten, whose services Mountbatten has secured for Nizam for conducting negotiations with India. Monckton had stated that he felt that there was no fundamental difference of approach between Mountbatten and himself. He would continue to look for the formula which would allow the statutory independence for Hyderabad and which, while containing no direct reference to the word accession, would incorporate into on a de facto basis. But Mountbatten and Monckton wanted the Nizam to have an association with India, not accession. Accession, as Monckton explained to Nizam, could not be abrogated, whereas association could. Patel failed to understand why Mountbatten asked India alone to adopt ethical and correct behavior towards Hyderabad and to act in such a way as could be defended before a bar of world opinion. Such moralization had little value for Patel when others were not reciprocating. The Nizam showed no qualms in trampling all codes of moral conduct. Campbell Johnson admitted that both the Nizam and his government are very volatile state. They are very volatile statesmen too, pursuing a very inconsistent and wavering line of policy. In such a situation, Mountbatten naturally found in Patel a much sterner and less conciliatory leader than Pandit Nehru. Patel had turned sterner and less conciliatory by the anti-Indian activities of the British Secretary of Political Department, Conrad Cornfield, and his British die-hard residents and agents in the state. Added to this was Mountbatten's highly intriguing role. Even before Attlee's February statement, Mountbatten, who was in touch with Jinnah through Bhopal, was testing the possibility of Conservative Party support for appeals by Jinnah and the Muslim princes for a separate membership of Commonwealth. In mid-January, he was in touch with the chief creator of the Act 1935 Act, Samuel Hoare, and was much encouraged by their measure of agreement. In April 1947, Mountbatten was in touch with Templewood about the acquisition of port facilities at Mam Goa in Portuguese Goa, with a rail linkage to be built from the state to the sea from Hyderabad to Goa. Imagine what could have been the repercussions. One, Alexander Roger, a businessman who had important contacts among the Portuguese authorities, was employed as intermediary. Mountbatten himself is reported to have visited Portugal in April before reaching India. He is quoted to have stated that for the Nizam to join India would be political suicide, and if we go warily, we shall very likely outlast them, the Indian government. Mountbatten was sanguine of Sardar Hyderabad's survival and believed that if HMG would maintain relations with Hyderabad, then Pakistan would recognize it, as would Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Mountbatten, his presence in Hyderabad from April onwards was sufficient encouragement to the Nizam to step up his activities aimed at achieving independence. Even before Britain's transference of power, plans were hatched for the transfer of Bastar to Hyderabad. Panikkar wrote to Patel on 19th May, "A very serious and extremely dangerous intrigue is taking place in Bastar, where the Nizam's government had been given a mining lease, the right to extend the Nizam's railway to Bastar and to acquire 15,000 square miles of rich mineral deposits." Panikkar stated, "It's a part of the dangerous intrigue to strengthen the Nizam in every possible way. For example, the sale of Prenton factory. This intrigue with the Nizam has to be scotched, otherwise the whole Hindustan will be undermined." This is what he said. Even Nehru wrote to Patel, "The Hyderabad government has come to an arrangement with the Birmingham Small Arms Company for the supply of arms. An order of 4 crores of rupees worth ammunition, with Mr. Kral calling himself representative of the Czechoslovakian government. On 12th June, after an announcement of the 3 June plan, the Nizam issued a farman which declared that the departure of the paramount power will mean that I shall become entitled to resume the status of an independent sovereign. The Nizam had set his heart to becoming a third dominion of the British Commonwealth. Early in June, the Nizam had been advised not only to declare his independence but also to recruit Britishers to the state forces, to ask for Goa as a part of his state, to demand a corridor between Hyderabad and Goa, and to apply for membership of the United Nations. The Nizam, on whom the king had conferred the titles Most Exalted Highness and faithful ally to the British government, was disappointed to find that the Indian Independence Bill did not provide for dominion status to Indian states. He protested against the way in which my state is being abandoned for its old ally, the British government, and the ties which have bound me in loyal devotion to the King Emperor are being severed. Mountbatten dispelled all doubts when he told the Nizam's delegation on 11th July that HMG would not agree to Hyderabad becoming a member of the British Commonwealth except through either of the two dominions of India or Pakistan. This humbled Nizam's pride but did not dishearten him, and he had other plans up his sleeve to gain time by engaging India in a prolonged constitutional negotiations through Moncton to make preparations for a military confrontations with India by purchase of arms through foreign sources and to build up the Ittihad Muslimin so as to arm himself with a view to crushing the Hindu subjects, even to encourage migration of Muslims from some of the other provinces of and states to Hyderabad. On Moncton's advice, the Nizam wrote to Mountbatten on 8th August that he could not contemplate bringing Hyderabad into organic union with either Pakistan or India, but was prepared to enter into a treaty which guaranteed the integrity and independent identity of his state under three conditions. In the event of a war between India and Pakistan, Hyderabad would remain neutral. Hyderabad should have the right to appoint agents wherever it thought fit, and if India seceded from the Commonwealth, Hyderabad would be free to review the situation de novo. Patel told Mountbatten rather sternly on 24th August, I wish to let your Excellency know my mind before you meet Nizam's delegation. I see no alternative but to insist the Nizam's accession to the dominion of India. The least variation in the instrument of accession or arrangements regarding states' association with the dominion in regard to three subjects would not only expose me to the charge of breach of faith with the states that have already joined the dominion, but would create an impression that the advantage lay in holding out rather than coming in, and that while no special merit attached to accession, a beneficial position could be secured by keeping out. This is bound to have most unfortunate consequences in our future negotiations for accession to the Union. Patel also informed Mountbatten, I have the authentic information that the recent activities of Ittihad Muslimin are designed almost to create a feeling of terror among the non-Muslim population so that its agitation in favor of the independence of Hyderabad with the possible alliance with Pakistan should flourish. What role was Mountbatten playing? He himself disclosed that in his note of 15 September to Nizam's Executive Council. My object has been to advise a course calculated to obtain for Hyderabad the maximum degree of real practical independence compatible with its prosperity and security. According to Mountbatten, an agreement of association as opposed to accession meant that a treaty or agreement short of accession preserves independence in law, whereas accession destroys it and involves merger or organic union. That when circumstances changed, for example, if Pakistan and Hyderabad grew strong enough to warrant it, the treaty can be denounced. Once a state has acceded to the dominion, it will find it hard to extricate itself. Mountbatten further explained, I wanted the negotiations to continue for Hyderabad as long as possible after 15th August. The longer they continued, the better for us. We have a breathing space to get ready for the economic and political conflict if it comes. I know that Patel was and is against any extension of time to Hyderabad, and the Governor General prevailed over the cabinet of the Dominion to allow him personally 2 months time to see whether he and I, who had known each other intimately for many years, publicly and privately, could find a compromise satisfactory to both sides. Encouraged by Mountbatten's note, the Nizam wrote to Mountbatten on 18 September that short of accession, Hyderabad was ready to and willing to make a treaty of association with India. Simultaneously with this approach to us, writes V.P. Menon, the Nizam got into contact with Jinnah with a view to securing the services of Zafarullah Khan as president of his Executive Council. Zafarullah could not be spared as he had to lead the Pakistan delegation to the UNO. Following this, an uncertainty hung over Hyderabad, with the result that the delegation after delegation, with leaders and members changing now and then, began visiting New Delhi for negotiations with Mountbatten. These were almost endless, with no agreement in sight. About mid-October, Patel got completely fed up and wanted to break off the negotiations. This upset Mountbatten, who pleaded it would be great pity if the negotiations were to break down. He ignored what the Nizam wrote towards the end of the October, that if negotiations with the government of India were to break down, he would immediately negotiate and conclude an agreement with Pakistan. Patel was much annoyed. He told Menon, the only decent course for us is to send back the new delegation by the very same plane by which it has arrived. Meanwhile, the situation within Hyderabad worsened. There was serious communal riots in Secunderabad on 25th August. The police were entirely manned by Muslims. A member of Nizam's executive council, Avadmad Iyengar, wrote that the Muslim police were unwilling to protect the life of or property of a Hindu, and armed Pathans, Rohingyas, and Arabs were allowed to roam about without let or hindrance, terrorizing the people. This caused an exodus of the Hindus. According to Iyengar, the local Muslim League, which had been well organized and supplied with arms, is only waiting for an opportunity to attack Hindus en masse. If Hyderabad joins the union, there would be mass slaughter on a large scale. Again, he reported on 23rd October, one Lancaster landed in Begumpet aerodrome direct from Pakistan. It is suspected that it contained arms and ammunition. Earlier on 19th September, Patel had told Mountbatten, the Nizam has mortgaged his future to his own Frankenstein. Itaullah Musalmin, the Razakar leader, Qasim Razvi, had mounted a tirade against Patel. He said on 14th October, Patel belongs to the class of Hitler. Our government is temperamentally like Chamberlain. What is there to prevent carrying out negotiations with Pakistan and other Muslim and non-Muslim countries? Mountbatten saved the situation for the Nizam by agreeing to reach a standstill agreement with Hyderabad on 25th November. Nehru wrote to Patel, I have just heard on the radio that Hyderabad agreement has been signed. Congratulations.